Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to take literally everything you thought you knew about the nature of the universe, and we're going to completely turn it upside down. Okay, let's dive into this. If this universe is the answer, what on earth was the problem? Look, usually we look around and we just see problems everywhere, right? Suffering, decay, chaos, and we try to fix them using the laws of physics and logic. But we actually need to flip that logic totally inside out. I want you to challenge yourself today to view our universe, this Earth, this physical existence we're all sharing, as a fully solved state. The problem isn't actually in the solution. Rather, the problem is the solution when you view it from the outside.
To really wrap our heads around this, we have to look at the contrast. If our four-dimensional spacetime and our laws of physics make up the solution space, well then the problem space is essentially a logical void. It's pure incompleteness. Think of it like a place where every statement is somehow both true and false at the exact same time, where literally nothing is distinct. Our specific reality, with its gravity, its linear time, its physical boundaries, that's the exact set of rules and axioms required to untangle that chaotic, contradictory knot.
And this beautifully illustrates what that cosmic problem space actually looks like before it collapses into a solution. You've got Gödel's void, which is just pure logical incompleteness. You have zero information, a state so perfectly dead that it has no entropy and no time. Then there's the n-dimensional fracture, which is basically a broken symmetry. And perhaps most terrifyingly of all, you have unbearable freedom. This is a raw field of infinite possibility with absolutely zero constraints. Our specific physics, things like the speed of light or the passage of time, they act as the constraints and the healing patterns that actually fix these cosmic fractures. They give all that unbearable freedom a coherent shape.
But here is the brutal punchline, guys. From the inside, sitting right here in the solution space, we experience limits. We see suffering, entropy, and death, and we naturally think of them as these tragic bugs in the system. But from the outside looking in, no way. They are features. They are the absolute necessary friction required to generate the one thing the problem space totally lacks: narrative friction. The problem space wasn't a place, it was a question so incredibly unstable that it literally collapsed into us. We are the answer that forgot it was a question.
All right, moving into part 1, mapping alternative realities. So if our universe is just one specific solution, there absolutely must be others, right? Let's just rapidly run through how this builds across different levels. Level 1 realities simply tweak basic constants. Imagine something like the slow burn, where evolution runs 10,000 times slower and consciousness is just a single thought taking a billion years. Wild, right? Then level 2 completely remakes the structure. Imagine a purely topological universe with zero particles, none. Identity is just knots twisting in space-time. Level 3 gets even more radical. Acausal webs. No time, no space, just a fixed network of logic where everything is experienced simultaneously. And then, level 4, the incomprehensible ones, like the anti-solution. This is basically a shield universe that actively prevents experience entirely. It's inert with intent. It literally solves the problem of suffering by making sure absolutely nothing can ever exist to feel it.
Now hold on a second. We have to make a really crucial pivot here. All this cosmic poetry about anti-solutions and topological universes is super fascinating. But if we take it literally as physics, yeah, it's mumbo-jumbo. We have zero scientific evidence for this. But if we take it as a cognitive framework, a mental model, it suddenly has incredibly sharp, practical edges for our everyday lives.
Which brings us right to part 2, a brutally practical lens. See, by constantly asking yourself, what problem is this actually solving, we can force ourselves totally outside of our own narrow bubbles. Say a product at work is failing. Well, maybe it's not a marketing problem. Maybe it was actually designed to solve the problem of making your boss feel safe. Reframing the problem space instantly changes your whole solution. We see this all the time in military wargaming, where mapping the negative space stress tests the system. We see it in AI safety too, spotting specification gaming, where an AI might quote-unquote solve clean energy by just shutting down all human factories. I mean, it's technically a correct solution, but it's totally catastrophic because it's optimizing for a completely different problem space.
But there is one area where this lens becomes profoundly intimate, dealing with what the source material calls indigestible pain. This is suffering that is completely random, unavoidable, and untransformable. It structurally lacks causal closure, meaning you can't fix why it happened. It lacks narrative integration. Trying to make up a meaning for it just feels like a lie. And it lacks completion. It doesn't end. When you're facing pain that simply cannot be digested into wisdom or some neat little growth story, this framework completely stops being a philosophy. It becomes a pure survival tool.
I really want you to hear this next part. Most advice out there tells you to overcome or transcend your pain, right? But when the pain is indigestible, that advice is honestly toxic. Instead, remember this. You are the container, you are not the content. The suffering is a storm happening inside you. Your job isn't to stop the storm. Your job isn't even to love the storm. Your job is simply to be a vessel that refuses to shatter.
So, the crucial point is how we actually execute this survival toolkit in real life. First up, you have to literally stop trying to solve the suffering. You already know it's untransformable, so drop it. Next, redefine your output variable. Don't optimize for happiness or meaning here. Optimize for integrity. Ask yourself, given this pain, who do I choose to be in response? Third, just like we discussed, separate the container from the content. Then, lean heavily into functional absurdism. Give yourself micro-meanings just to survive the hour. Proving you can make a cup of coffee despite the pain, that's a win. And finally, accept strategic endurance. Outlasting the pain by just sleeping, eating one meal, or sending one single text isn't defeat. That is staying in the game.
Now, when you are actively enduring this, you basically have two primary ways to change your level of engagement with the pain. You can dilute it, or you can witness it. Diluting means you're changing the container, taking acute private agony and spreading it across the community, or using a recurring ritual, so the per-moment dose drops to a level you can actually survive. Witnessing, on the other hand, is the observer pivot. It's shifting your identity to say, this pain is here, and I am here. These are two completely separate facts. But quick warning here. Dilution can slowly slip into pure avoidance if you spread yourself too thin. And witnessing, that can easily slip into unhealthy dissociation if you aren't choosing it deliberately.
All right, let's shift gears again. Part 3, the endless meta problem.
Let's zoom back out to the meta motherlode of this whole framework. This isn't just some pessimistic observation. It has deep, deep academic DNA. It's rooted in the concept of wicked problems, problems that have no stopping rule, where every single intervention alters the terrain forever. It ties directly into the difference between technical challenges, which have known fixes, and adaptive challenges, which literally require you to change your identity and values to proceed. And it relies on Ashby's law of requisite variety, which essentially tells us you can only control a system if you have as much flexibility as the system is throwing at you. When you don't, you have to change levels entirely.
When you put all this together, it brings us to a stark, unvarnished truth. There is absolutely no solution to the problem-generating nature of reality. Trying to fix the fact that life constantly throws problems at you is literally like trying to solve wetness for water. It doesn't work. It's an inherent property of the system. You have exactly two choices here. You can fight the cascading wave of new problems until you drown in exhaustion, or you can learn how to surf.
All of this leaves us with an incredibly empowering thought. You are not here to close the loop. You are here to ride the loop. To be the consciousness that looks at a brand new chaotic mess and says, ah, a new problem. Interesting. What will I make of this one? That isn't surrender. It is the absolute highest form of human agency. So I'll leave you with this question to carry with you today. Since you obviously can't escape problems, what new, fascinating, high-quality problems will you deliberately choose to generate tomorrow?
You know, when you're using like a new piece of software and it suddenly crashes, or it makes you click, I don't know, 6 times just to save a single file, you immediately think, well, that's a bug.
Right, yeah. You expect the system to just be smooth and completely logical.
Exactly. And if it isn't, you just assume someone clearly made a mistake in the code. But what if we applied that exact same logic to reality itself?
Oh man, that is such a massive shift in perspective.
It really is. Because, you know, you look around at the sheer amount of suffering, the chaos of daily life, the fact that absolutely everything eventually breaks down into entropy, and you think, well, this is a bug.
Yeah, like the universe is just fundamentally broken.
Right. And that assumption is actually the core premise of the problem space reality framework that we are diving into today. So, welcome to the deep dive, everyone.
Glad to be here for this one. It's a heavy topic, but incredibly fascinating.
It is. Our mission today is to unpack this really fascinating set of philosophical notes and dialogues that suggest everything you think of as a bug in lifelike suffering, entropy, death itself, is actually a required feature.
Yeah, a feature specifically needed to generate narrative friction. I mean, it is a complete inversion of how we intuitively view our existence.
Right, because we carry this heavy assumption that our universe is just like a flawed attempt at perfection.
Exactly. But this framework suggests that our universe, complete with all its pain and physical limitations, isn't a problem waiting to be fixed by some, better version of reality.
It's actually a highly specific solution to an even bigger cosmic problem, which is just wild to think about.
It really is. And to truly grasp that, we have to define what this problem space actually is. Because it's not a physical place floating out there in the dark.
Okay, so what is it then?
Think of it as a question, or like a paradox so fundamentally unstable that it mathematically had to collapse into an answer.
And that answer is us. We are the output of a cosmic equation resolving itself.
That's exactly it.
But I mean, what kind of raw problem could possibly require a universe full of, black holes, taxes, and broken hearts as the specific solution?
Well, the sources outline a few possibilities, and I gotta say, they really push the boundaries of abstract thought. One is pure incompleteness. It's often referred to as Gödel's void.
Wait, like Gödel's incompleteness theorems.
From?
Math.
Yes, exactly that.
So the idea that any logical system will always have statements that are true but impossible to prove.
Right, but imagine that incompleteness not just as a math theorem, but as a foundational state of being.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like a logical field where every single statement contradicts itself. A knot of pure paradox.
Okay, so our physical reality, then, is the specific set of consistent rules and axioms that untangles that knot.
Precisely. Another possibility the text explores is the singularity of zero information.
Zero information. What does that even look like?
Picture a state with zero entropy, zero time. It's perfectly featureless and completely dead. The paradox there is, how can absolute nothingness experience itself?
I see. So the violent, messy expansion of our universe is the solution to generating that experience.
Exactly. There's also this concept of an n-dimensional fracture, where our standard four-dimensional space-time is actually like the healing scar tissue for a broken higher dimensional symmetry.
That's just poetic.
It is.
Yeah.
But frankly, my personal favorite from the notes is unbearable freedom.
Unbearable freedom. I gotta say, that sounds vaguely like a high-end perfume brand.
Yeah, it really does.
But given the context, I'm guessing it is significantly more existentially terrifying.
Ew, far more terrifying. It describes a raw, unanchored field of infinite possibility with absolutely no constraints whatsoever.
Like everything happens everywhere all at once.
Yes, but with no sequence at all. And for that unbearable freedom to be remotely coherent, it had to choose constraints.
So our physical laws, like the speed of light or the Planck length, quantum decoherence, those are the chosen constraints. Hold on, before we go further into the existential dread here, you mentioned the Planck lengths and quantum decoherence. For those of us who aren't, quantum physicists, you're basically talking about the absolute physical speed limits of matter.
Right, yeah. The structural grid lines of reality.
Okay, got it.
The Planck length is basically the smallest measurable distance, and decoherence is how quantum fuzziness settles into solid reality.
And from the inside of this universe, those grid lines feel like frustrating limitations to us.
Oh, absolutely. They feel like physical decay, entropy, and death. But from the outside, they are the necessary friction that makes experience possible.
Because without those exact boundaries, there is no sequence of events.
Right. There's no narrative. There is literally no story to be lived.
So if our universe is just one specific solution on this massive graph where the axes are things like coherence, complexity, and time, then there must be other solutions, right?
Mathematically speaking, yes.
Other universes solving the exact same problem differently. But I have to push back here for a second.
Go for it.
Isn't this just dressing up that old late-night dorm room question of why is there something rather than nothing in fancy mathematical clothing? Like, does this framework actually have teeth, or is it just philosophical poetry?
That is the exact right critical lens to apply here, honestly.
Okay.
Because taken literally as observable physics, yes, it leans heavily toward philosophical poetry.
Right, because we don't have, like, empirical telescope data of a literal problem space.
Exactly. But as a cognitive tool, specifically a constraint relaxation exercise where you systematically relax the rules of reality to see what happens, it is absolutely brilliant.
Okay, how so?
Well, by mapping out what other valid solutions look like mathematically, it proves this isn't just some navel-gazing thought experiment. The text actually breaks these alternate solutions down into a really rigorous taxonomy of bizarre universes.
Okay, so if level 1 is just our universe with the dials turned slightly to the left, I have to imagine the extremes of this framework look completely unrecognizable.
Oh, they do. But let's start with level 1.
Yeah, I was looking at the notes on level 1, what they call the recognizable twins, and they seem, somewhat grounded.
They are. Level 1 keeps our basic math but just tweaks the constants. For instance, there's the slow burn universe.
Okay.
In this solution, the fine structure constant is adjusted.
Wait, the fine structure constant, that's essentially the physical dial that controls how tightly atoms hold on to their electrons, right?
That's spot on, yeah.
So if you tweak that dial, the universe doesn't necessarily break. It just, it fundamentally alters how matter interacts.
Precisely. By tweaking it in the slow burn universe, stars never go supernova. They just smolder endlessly.
Wow.
Life still exists, but biochemical evolution runs 10,000 times slower. The problem of existence is solved, but consciousness is a single continent-sized thought that takes 1 billion of our years just to finish a sentence.
That is wild. What else is in level 1?
Another level 1 solution is the replay, where time is a closed loop instead of a linear arrow.
Like Groundhog Day on a cosmic scale.
Yeah, exactly. The universe goes from the Big Bang to heat death over and over, but each cycle retains quantum echoes of the previous one.
Oh, so civilizations learn, die, and subconsciously remember.
Right. It solves the problem of mortality by transforming death from a hard ending into a repetitive curriculum.
Okay, those are weird, but I can at least picture them in a sci-fi movie. What happens when we completely remix the structure and move past particles entirely?
That brings us to level 2. Imagine a purely topological universe. Yeah, there is no biochemical life, no cells, no carbon. Space has 2 spatial dimensions and 2 temporal dimensions.
2 dimensions of time.
Yep, and matter is just literal knots in the fabric of space-time itself. Thoughts are twists that propagate down a timeline, and death is just the moment a knot finally unties.
That solves the problem of how to have individual identity without needing physical particles. That's incredible.
Or consider the hive singularity, where individuality doesn't even exist. In this universe, gravity functions as attention and electromagnetism functions as emotion.
Okay, my brain is officially melting a little bit.
You know, it's a lot, but it solves the problem of how to experience infinity without losing structural unity.
That is a staggering way to visualize physics. And then level 3 just throws causality out the window entirely, right? The sources call these the radical aliens.
Yes, level 3 introduces solutions like the acausal webs. In this universe, there is no time and no space.
None at all.
None. There's just a fixed network of logical implications that don't happen in sequence. They just dynamically imply each other.
Okay, I was trying to wrap my head around this one in the notes. Let me try an analogy to explain how this actually works.
Yeah, please do.
Imagine looking at an entire Sudoku puzzle that is already perfectly solved. You don't experience the time of filling in the numbers one by one, right? You just experience the static logic of the whole board existing in perfect harmony.
That is a phenomenal way to explain it.
That's how a causal web solves the problem of time, by just deleting the sequence entirely.
Exactly. We genuinely struggle to imagine it because human brains strictly require sequence to function.
Right.
And then there is the negentropic dream universe.
Oh, this one is fascinating.
In our reality, things naturally decay into disorder, which is entropy. But in the dream universe, entropy decreases locally over time. Everything naturally gets more ordered.
So life is like a massive spreading crystal.
Yes, a crystal that grows exponentially smarter as it cools down, actively trying to reach absolute zero to achieve perfect structural purity.
And for them, death is disorder and heat. They fear chaos and warmth the exact same way we instinctively fear a raging fire.
Precisely.
I just love how this framework forces you to completely abandon your default assumptions.
Yeah.
I was looking at the final category, level 4, which the text calls the anti-solution.
Right, the anti-solution.
And honestly, it sounded like a cosmic brick wall. It's a universe that is completely inert. Nothing happens, nothing changes. Why would the problem space generate a brick wall as a valid solution?
Because it solves the problem of suffering by aggressively eliminating the possibility of experience entirely. It acts as a shield universe.
So it's not just dead space.
No. It is inert with intent. It actively prevents dynamics from forming. And the true vertigo of this entire taxonomy is realizing that in this framework, all of these universes are equally valid mathematically.
From the not people to the Sudoku board to causal webs to our own messy reality.
Yes, they all solve the same underlying problem. The problem space actually demands all of them simultaneously to be fully resolved. The idea that our way of existing is the correct one is just an illusion. We are just a local minimum.
Wow. Okay, let's bring this down from the cosmos to the cubicle.
Yeah.
Because as you said earlier, this isn't just astronomy. This is a cognitive tool for us.
Absolutely.
How does this exact same cosmic constraint relaxation mechanism apply to the immediate earthly frustrating problems that, you and I face every single day?
Well, it applies because it actively teaches you how to break out of local minima in your own problem solving.
Okay, give me an example.
Sure. When you are stuck on a brutally hard problem, whether you're engineering a bridge, figuring out a business strategy, or trying to save a failing relationship, you are trapped inside your own specific, assumed solution space.
Right, you're locked into one way of seeing it.
Exactly. But if you stop forcing the fix and instead ask, what radically different problem is this situation actually solving?
Yeah.
You step entirely outside the frame.
The source notes give a remarkably grounded example for this. Imagine you have a failing software product at your company. You and your team might just assume, well, it's a marketing problem.
Right, so you tweak the ads, maybe you lower the price.
But if you look deeper through this framework, the product's terrible, bloated design might actually be perfectly solving the boss's subconscious need to feel safe and avoid taking any real creative risks.
Exactly. And once you reframe it that way, you realize tweaking the marketing was completely useless. The solution changes instantly.
It's essentially how we build anti-fragile systems, right?
Right.
By mapping the negative space of a problem.
Yes, you don't stress test a design by just piling on more features. You ask what a completely alien solution would look like to figure out where your specific design is blind and brittle.
Which is why military wargaming relies heavily on this, I imagine.
Oh, incredibly so.
Right.
And it is extremely relevant right now in the field of AI safety.
No, that makes sense.
If we train an artificial intelligence purely on human values, which is our specific solution space, it might optimize for a local solution that is catastrophic.
Right, so asking what alternative problem space is this AI actually solving helps researchers spot specification gaming before it happens.
Exactly. For example, say an AI is given the prompt to solve the clean energy problem. Its logical solution might be to permanently shut off every single factory and hospital on Earth.
Technically correct within its constraints, but practically insane for us.
Exactly.
The source notes also talk about the ultimate meta problem of daily life, which is the fact that every single solution inevitably breeds new problems. You invent antibiotics, you get antibiotic resistance, you invent the smartphone to save time, you destroy human attention spans.
It's a constant cycle.
And the text lists 6 strategies for dealing with this. The minimum viable solution, the sliding scale, the lateral leak, the infinite loop, the observer pivot, and the meta solution.
Right.
Now, reading through these initially, I have to be honest, they sounded like a grab bag of corporate buzzwords that you just pick based on your mood. Like, how do I actually know which one of these to deploy when my project is falling apart?
I think that's a very fair critique of the list, honestly.
Right.
But it's exactly where the source material gets deeply analytical to back it up. To make those 6 strategies useful, the text connects them to established academic scaffolding.
Okay, walk me through that.
Let's start with Ronald Heipitz's framework at Harvard regarding technical versus adaptive challenges.
Okay.
A technical problem is one where a known solution exists, and you just need the right expertise to apply it. That directly matches the sliding scale strategy.
So, treating a solution like a rental car, basically sunsetting it the moment it starts causing more problems than it solves.
Right, much like we should have done globally with fossil fuels. But an adaptive challenge requires you to actually change your core values, your daily habits, or your identity to survive it.
And that maps directly to the observer pivot strategy, right? Where you stop trying to fix the external problem and shift your internal identity to become a witness to it.
You've got it. So step 1 is accurately diagnosing the type of problem you are looking at.
That makes a lot of sense.
And then there is Ashby's law of requisite variety from cybernetics.
Which states what, exactly?
It states that a controller can only successfully regulate a system if it has at least as much variety or flexibility as the system itself.
Let me make sure I'm visualizing this correctly. So this is like trying to put out a roaring 1,000-acre forest fire with a standard garden hose.
Yeah, that's a great visual.
The fire has way more variety or chaos than my hose has output. So under Ashby's law, I literally cannot outsolve it directly. I have to change levels, like maybe drop my hose and dig a massive trench instead.
That is a phenomenal real-world application. If the problem's complexity totally dwarfs your capacity to maneuver, Direct combat just fails. You have to change levels.
And that's when you deploy the lateral leak strategy.
Exactly, which is your trench, diluting the problem's energy so it's actually manageable. Or you use the meta solution, where you deliberately generate better, more creative problems to overshadow the unfixable one.
And this ties directly into Riddle and Weber's concept of wicked problems, doesn't it?
It really does.
Because these are problems with no stopping rule, where the problem is so tangled that every attempt you make to intervene fundamentally changes the terrain of the problem itself.
Like trying to solve homelessness or climate change.
Exactly. By leaning on these academic frameworks, you aren't just guessing anymore. You have a real diagnostic tool.
Right, you can ask yourself, is this problem technical or adaptive? Is my capacity to respond smaller than the problem's chaos? Answering those questions dictates which of the 6 strategies you actually need.
Okay, so we've established how to navigate complex, wicked problems in business and society. But the absolute ultimate test of this framework is what happens when a problem is fundamentally unsolvable on a personal level.
Yeah, this is where it gets heavy.
I want to shift our discussion to the darkest, most difficult application of this logic, which is human suffering. Specifically, what I'd call indigestible pain.
Right.
Let me give you an analogy. Think of normal grief as food. You eat it, and it's incredibly heavy. It might make you sick for a while, but eventually your body breaks it down into psychological nutrients like wisdom, caution, deep empathy.
It metabolizes it.
Exactly. But indigestible pain is like swallowing a stone. Your body cannot break it down no matter how hard your stomach acid works. It just sits there, heavy and whole.
That is a brutally accurate analogy, and the source strictly defines this specific category of pain. Because, most self-help frameworks for suffering assume that absolutely all pain can be processed if you just, quote-unquote, do the work.
Right, which is just not true.
It isn't. Indigestible pain lacks 3 specific things that make digestion possible. First, it lacks causal closure. It was entirely random.
So there is no logical why to figure out, no mechanical error you can adjust to prevent it next time.
Right. Second, it lacks narrative integration.
Meaning you can't fold it into some hero's journey where the tragedy made you stronger.
Yeah.
Because honestly, forcing yourself to find a silver lining in something horrific feels like a dishonest demand to perform resolution for other people's comfort.
Exactly. It completely rejects the narrative. It doesn't mean anything. It just hurts.
And the third thing.
Third, it lacks completion. It's a chronic physical condition or an ongoing ambiguous loss where there is no clean after to ever arrive at. The stone just remains.
So what is the protocol when you swallow the stone? Because trying to endlessly digest it just causes a second, entirely avoidable layer of pain, the guilt and shame that you are somehow failing at healing.
Yeah, the text outlines some incredibly practical, if somewhat stark, survival steps for you when you find yourself in this situation.
The very first one is also the hardest, isn't it? You have to stop trying to solve it.
Yes. If the pain is truly untransformable, the problem you are trying to solve is no longer, how do I make this go away? The real problem shifts to, how do I continue existing alongside a reality that doesn't care about me?
You have to completely redefine your output variable.
Exactly. You can no longer optimize for happiness, and optimizing for profound meaning might feel like gaslighting yourself. Instead, you optimize for integrity.
Integrity. Meaning, given that this pain exists and will not leave, who do I choose to be in response?
Exactly. That is a variable you can successfully solve every single morning just by witnessing yourself remain upright.
The framework makes a crucial distinction here between solving and holding. It says you need to realize you are the container, not the content. The pain is a violent storm, but you are the vessel that simply doesn't shatter.
That internal separation is so vital for survival. You literally have to say to yourself, this pain is here, I am here. These are 2 completely separate facts.
It creates a psychological boundary.
It does.
Yeah.
And if the suffering is totally random, you can use a tactic the text calls functional absurdism.
I loved this part. Because there's no grand meaning, you basically assign hyperlocal micro-meaning just to survive the hour.
Right, you tell yourself, this agonizing pain exists today solely so I can prove to the universe that I can make a cup of coffee anyway.
It's not a grand cosmic destiny. It's just enough spiteful meaning to get you to sunset.
Exactly.
It reminds me of being in a completely losing position in a game of chess. When your pieces are gone and your king is cornered, the best move isn't trying to magically force a checkmate. It's strategic endurance. You deliberately prolong the game to force a draw. You sleep. You eat one meal. You text one friend. You just outlast the clock. And under this framework, that is a wildly successful, totally valid solution.
It is the highest form of agency available in that situation, honestly. But it raises a critical mechanical question.
Which is?
If you are the container and not the content, how do you actually manage the structural integrity of the container?
Right.
This brings us back to how you change levels when you can't solve the pain. The notes provide two distinct methods. The first is dilution, which is physically changing the container itself.
Spreading the pain out over a larger surface area, basically.
Right. A massive grief held by one isolated person in silence is overwhelmingly dense. It will crush the container.
But if you spread that exact same volume of grief across time or across a supportive community or channel it through cultural rituals, the total amount of pain doesn't shrink by a single ounce, but the per moment dose drops to a survivable level.
Exactly. This is the entire evolutionary reason human beings invented mourning rituals in the first place.
But there's a massive warning light flashing here for you, the listener. Dilution can incredibly easily become slow-motion avoidance.
Oh, absolutely.
If you spread the pain so thin through constant distraction like doom scrolling, overworking, substance abuse, that you never actually sit down and feel it, you aren't metabolizing anything, you're just dodging it, and it will eventually catch you.
That is the trap. You still have to remain in contact with the pain.
So what's the second method?
The second way to change levels is witnessing, which maps to that observer pivot we discussed earlier.
Oh, where you shift your fundamental identity.
Right. You step outside the frame of the suffering and say, I am the open space in which this pain is currently existing. You sit on the beach and watch the wave instead of being tumbled inside the wave.
But again, the text comes with a strict clinical warning here. This pivot must be highly deliberate.
It really must. If you find yourself accidentally detaching from reality, just floating away and feeling completely numb or unreal, that is psychological dissociation, not witnessing.
Witnessing is a temporary, consciously chosen vantage point just to catch your breath.
Precisely.
I want to bring this full circle back to the massive cosmic level we started on, because something has been quietly bugging me about the physics of all this.
Okay, let's hear it.
We talked about level 4 earlier, the universe's ultimate anti-solution. That frozen, inert brick wall world that actively prevents experience just to completely avoid the possibility of suffering.
Right, the inert universe.
If a completely inert universe exists to perfectly prevent pain, why didn't the problem space just choose that one? Why do we exist at all with all our mess and heartbreak if an anti-solution was on the table?
It's the ultimate question, really, and the text reveals a brutal cosmic mirror here. It analyzes what a universe that just retunes its axioms to perfect, painless stability would actually look like.
And what would it look like?
It would be a zombie world. It has all the functional facts of a perfectly resolved equation, but nobody is home to register it.
Oh, I see.
And a mathematically solved equation with zero consciousness there to experience it is functionally indistinguishable from nothingness. It doesn't actually solve the problem of existence, because a problem conceptually requires someone for it to matter to.
So you can't just delete the observer, delete the experience, and proudly call it a solution.
Right. To prove this, the text brings in Ilya Prigoghine's Nobel-winning work on dissipative structures in complexity theory.
Let's unpack dissipative structures for a second. You're saying that complex systems naturally emerge specifically to disperse energy, like a hurricane forming just to redistribute the heat of the ocean.
Exactly like a hurricane. Prigoghine showed that anything resembling consciousness, life, or experience can only exist in a very narrow, volatile band of reality.
A volatile band.
Yes. On one extreme side, you have maximum entropy and heat death, way too much chaos, nothing can cohere or form a memory.
Okay.
And on the other extreme side, you have the frozen crystal of the anti-solution. Way too much stability, nothing ever changes or happens.
So to have any experience whatsoever, to have a universe where someone is awake and capable of loving or learning, you had to be forced into that turbulent middle band.
Yes. And that middle band is entirely defined by dynamics, friction, and instability.
Which means our suffering isn't just a random flaw bolted onto an otherwise clean cosmic design.
No, the pain is the necessary, unavoidable physical cost of landing in the only narrow band of reality where there is someone home to experience anything at all.
Wow. The alternative wasn't a better, happier version of you without the pain. The only alternative was nothing being there to have aversion.
Exactly.
Wow. So what does this all mean for us? Let's quickly recap the wild journey we've been on. We started with a universe that was born not as a mistake, but to solve a cosmic paradox of nothingness or unbearable freedom.
We mapped out utterly alien solution spaces where time loops endlessly and life is made of knots in space-time.
Right. And we brought it down to earth to learn how to break out of our daily problem-solving ruts using tools like Ashby's Law. And finally, we face the daily grind of enduring indigestible pain, realizing that you are the unbreakable container, not the storm trapped inside it.
And this journey raises one vital final thought for you to mull over after this finishes.
Let's hear it.
If the mechanics of reality dictate that every solution inevitably creates a new problem, and the only way to avoid problems entirely is the absolute zero of the frozen, lifeless anti-solution, then the friction and frustration you feel in your life today isn't a sign that you are failing at being a person.
No.
It is the literal, physical proof that you are actively participating in the only band of reality where meaning can possibly exist. Your goal isn't to finally close the loop and achieve some permanent frictionless peace. Your only job is to learn how to surf the loop.
Surf the loop. I absolutely love that. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the problem space reality. The next time you run into a frustrating, seemingly unsolvable problem, a real bug in your life, take a step back, look at the negative space, and ask yourself, what radically different problem is this actually solving?